In the summer of 2023, something happened that had never happened before. A single company, built around a single injection, grew so valuable that it was worth more than the entire economy of the country it came from. The drug was Ozempic. The company was Novo Nordisk. And at its peak, this one Danish drug maker became the most valuable company in all of Europe, its market value exceeding the entire annual economic output of Denmark itself. One medicine had reshaped the global food industry, the fitness industry, and the pharmaceutical world overnight. And then, almost as fast as it rose, it got crushed. This is the story of the drug that became bigger than a country, and the war that brought it back down to earth. To understand the scale of what happened, you have to understand what this drug actually does. Ozempic, and its sister drug Wegovy, belong to a class of medicines called GLP-1 agonists. They mimic a hormone your gut naturally produces after eating, the hormone that tells your brain you're full. Inject it once a week, and suddenly the constant background noise of hunger goes quiet. People simply eat less, because they no longer feel the urge to eat more. Some users described it as silencing the food noise, that nagging voice in your head that's always thinking about the next meal, the next snack, the next bite. For people who had fought their own appetites their entire lives, it felt less like a medication and more like a switch being flipped off. And the results weren't subtle. Patients were losing 15, sometimes 20% of their body weight. For the first time in history, there was a pill, an injection, that reliably did what every diet, every gym membership, and every willpower-based program had failed to do for a century. And the world noticed. Quickly. What started as a diabetes drug became a cultural phenomenon. Hollywood ran on it, billionaires whispered about it, social media exploded with before and after transformations. Demand became so insane that there were global shortages. Actual diabetics struggled to find their medication because so many people wanted it for weight loss. Novo Nordisk literally could not manufacture the drug fast enough. And when a company can't make its product fast enough to meet demand, investors see one thing: a money printing machine. Novo's stock went vertical. By mid-2024, the share price had climbed to just over 1,000 Danish kroner, an all-time high. The company's value soared past every other corporation in Europe. Think about what that means. Not the biggest oil company, not the biggest bank, not the biggest luxury empire in France. A maker of weight loss injections from a small Nordic country became the single most valuable business on an entire continent. The Danish economy itself became dependent on it. Novo's success was propping up the country's growth figures, its currency, its tax revenue. One drug had become systemically important to a nation. But here's the ripple effect that makes this story so much bigger than one company. Because when people stop feeling hungry, entire industries built on hunger start to panic. Major food companies, the makers of snacks, sodas, and processed treats, saw their stock prices wobble as analysts asked a terrifying question. What happens to a junk food empire when millions of customers simply stop craving junk food? Fast food chains started studying smaller portion menus. Snack makers scrambled. Even airlines speculated that lighter passengers could mean lower fuel costs. The fitness and diet industry, a behemoth worth tens of billions, faced an existential threat from a drug that worked better than any program they'd ever sold. One injection was quietly rewriting the economics of how the modern world eats. So if the science was this good and the demand this insane, how did it all come crashing down? The answer is the oldest force in business: competition. Novo Nordisk made one fatal assumption. That being first meant staying first. It didn't. Across the Atlantic, an American pharmaceutical giant called Eli Lilly had been building something better. Their drugs, Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for obesity, used a molecule called tirzepatide, which hit not one but two gut hormones at once. In study after study, Lilly's drug produced more weight loss than Novo's. It was simply more effective. And in a market where results are everything, the better drug wins. Through 2025, Lilly's tirzepatide drugs overtook Novo's, with combined sales of around $36 billion, pulling ahead of Ozempic and Wegovy's roughly $32 billion. The crown was changing hands. Then the dam broke. In early 2026, Novo Nordisk warned investors that its sales would actually decline between 5 and 13% as it got squeezed from every direction. The company's new CEO put it bluntly: people should expect it to go down before it comes back up. And the punishment was brutal. Novo's stock collapsed roughly 75% from that 2024 peak. 3/4 of its value gone. Over the same 5-year stretch, Eli Lilly's stock rose around 400%. One company became the king of obesity, the other became a cautionary tale about how fast a lead can evaporate. The blows kept landing. Novo had pinned its hopes on a next-generation drug called cagrilintide, designed to leapfrog Lilly. In a crucial head-to-head trial, it failed to prove it was better. Novo's stock dropped another 16% in a single day. Then came the pricing wall. Under government pressure in the United States, the price of these drugs is being slashed dramatically. Ozempic set to fall around 71% below its old list price for Medicare patients. And in markets like India, generic versions are flooding in. More than 24 rival brands of cheap semaglutide, undercutting Novo entirely. The scarcity that made the drug so profitable was vanishing. So what's the lesson buried in this roller coaster? It's that being first to a revolution is not the same as owning it. Novo Nordisk didn't fail because its drug stopped working. Ozempic still works exactly as well as it did at the peak. It got crushed because the thing that made it special, being the only option, was always temporary. The moment a better drug arrived, the moment competitors and generics flooded in, the moment governments forced prices down, the magic spell broke. The science was real, the monopoly was not. And yet, step back far enough, and the bigger story isn't about one stock or one company. It's that humanity stumbled onto a tool that may permanently change our relationship with food, with our bodies, and with the multi-trillion-dollar industries built on our appetites. The corporate war between Novo and Lilly is just the opening chapter. The drug that briefly became bigger than a country didn't disappear. It became the foundation of an entirely new industry, one that's still only getting started. If you find it fascinating when science, money, and human behavior collide like this, subscribe, because breaking down exactly how these world-changing forces actually work is what this channel is built for. And I want your honest opinion in the comments. Are these weight loss drugs a genuine medical miracle that will make us healthier, or are we handing control of our appetites to pharmaceutical companies forever? Tell me what you really think.